Welcome to the Google versus OpenAI episode of Using AI. It's the one we've all been waiting for. I'm joined by senior ML research scientist Alex Papadopoulos-Koviatis and AI startup founder and CTO Nitish Mutta. Welcome both.
Hello, Alex. Hi, Nitish.
Hello, both.
So, what has been announced and what has actually been released so far? This will be coming out on Thursday. We're recording it on Wednesday. Everything was released about a week ago, so a lot of this is old news, but it's been digested and poured over, and hopefully we can bring some fresh discussion to the announcements. But let's run you through it quickly, even though many of you will already know.
So Google released, or at least announced, a bunch of things last week, right? And all of them are based around the new large language model, Gemini. So they've been training this for a while, and one of the cool things about it is they've built it from the ground up for multimodality. So instead of training on just text, it trained on text, images, audio, videos, and can handle all those modalities in the long run. I think they announced that they'll release 3 different sizes of the Gemini model. The biggest one is Ultra, and they're comparing that to GPT-4, and actually they had some comparisons and claiming that it's better than GPT-4 in most benchmarks. Then the Pro model, that's smaller, but a bit better than GPT 3.5, around GPT-4 performance. And then one very interestingly that runs on device as well, the Nano size. So this will run on phones, for example, and provide large language model output locally on the phones without needing to do cloud stuff. They released a bunch of videos showing off some of the features. There's a bit of controversy around those videos. We'll cover that later, I assume. And also a new alpha code model. So Google originally released the previous alpha code model about a year ago, and now they released alpha code 2. Not released, but announced alpha code 2 that does like better than human performance on code competition data. So that's based on the Gemini model as well, but fine-tuned on code data. The Pro model, Google has already upgraded Bard with it. So if you use Bard since last week, it's actually using Gemini Pro rather than Google's previous model, which was Palm 2, making Bard quite a bit better. And Gemini Pro will be released for developer API access starting today, Wednesday, the 13th of December. And that's it. And the Ultra model, which all of us are very curious about, there's no time frame yet for releasing that one. Google said that they're still doing security testing and making sure that it's secure enough to actually release in any form, but they did not provide any time frames as for when that might be happening. I think I didn't forget anything, but I might have. Did I forget anything, Alex?
No, I don't think so. I think that was a very good rundown. The bit that I'm particularly excited about, which is a bit silly, but ultimately it's a podcast about using AI, right? And I have used Bard on Pro, and I'd be happy to talk about that. I definitely think it's better than GPT 3.5. I think it's on par with GPT-4 for some things for me. But Nano is the reason that I bought the Pixel 8 Pro, which, apart from having a very annoying fingerprint sensor, hopefully will be a phone that I can run a Nano LLM on. They have actually announced, sadly, it's US based for now, but if you've got a Pixel 8 Pro or a Pixel 8 in the US, then you can actually run Gemini Nano and in some quite disruptive ways. So you can run it to summarize recordings, effectively like a transcript AI tools, and there's been heaps of those released. And OpenAI has Whisper, so it's competing with that. But in a more private capacity if it's running on your device, which is quite interesting. And then lots of other ways that they're embedding Nano in the way that you do your photos, your videos, day-to-day use of your phone. But I think the Recorder app is a really interesting starter point for that.
So then does Nano actually do, I know that it's multimodal as well, but does it actually also do speech to text on device? That is pretty cool.
That's the promise. I don't know if this initial update does it yet, but that was the promise, that it would run on device. So I think they also want to be one of the first AI tools that can claim to have put privacy first. And it makes sense, right? Like, the Nano tool is obviously a dumbed down version. It has to fit on your phone. It has to run on your phone using a phone processor. So perhaps the data got from it wouldn't be high quality enough to help train a tool like Ultra. So Google don't mind losing the data inputs on their end as well.
Interesting.
Yeah, I wonder like if that becomes a trend, especially given privacy and data, especially for businesses and companies, more LLMs they want to use, how comfortable they are to use LLMs via these providers and use in cloud. It's certainly a good trend. Yes, it's starting from mobile devices, where that's where privacy is more focused for individuals. I'd like to see if this trend goes on and if there's more development happening here to have more on device or more localized models. It will be a huge engineering challenge, but still, it's a good promise.
Absolutely. I feel like as well, there's been a lot of multimodal talk since, the chat AIs have taken over the world. Multimodal is obviously the next thing. And, you're never closer to media than you are when you're holding your phone in your hand and you're videoing or live streaming or, taking pictures or recording audio. Like, all of those things we do on our phones on a regular basis. So multimodal AI and interacting with the world around us with AI on our phones, I think, is going to become very normal in the next 12 months if multimodal lives up to the dream and can run effectively on device.
On the point of multimodal, I think that's very interesting. I think this is where probably Google's approach, mainly because coming in late, could have been different to how OpenAI has thought about it before. Because I think OpenAI does provide like video, or like not video, probably image generation or video analysis, a bit of that. But I think, again, I think they would know more how exactly they built it. But based on what we know so far, I think they had to build those systems separate and build that as a product to bring it into ChatGPT. And again, probably not everything is available via APIs. Whereas I think Google, their approach has been like single model, being multimodal. So everything goes inside the same model, all the inputs, be it image, be it video, audio, and text, as we know, and then generate relevant outputs. So I think that has been a good perspective or better design principle, I guess, to build this. I'm sure GPT-5 might be doing something similar now.
I think that for image specifically, GPT-4 Vision is also doing something like that. So GPT-4 was actually trained in a multimodal way on image plus text. But otherwise, I completely agree. Yeah. So the speech to text aspect, for example, Whisper is a separate model, and it's just a pipeline of models allowing them to have speech text inside ChatGPT, right? Same with the image generation. So it's DALL-E 3, like a separate model, and ChatGPT just writes the prompt for DALL-E. So it is like a pipeline approach rather than a multimodal generation approach. And I'm super excited by one single model doing speech text, doing image generation, doing image recognition, and then you don't need to to split your pipeline between different models. It also that remains to be seen in practice, but it also might allow the model to learn a lot more, right? Because humans learn on multiple modalities. We don't learn just based on text, right? We have sensory input, we have text that we're reading, we have things that we hear, more things than the modalities of Gemini. We have touch and things like that, right? But it's I think it's a great step in the right direction what Gemini is doing with multimodality.
Yeah, just probably moving on slightly, I guess. If we are talking about comparisons between Gemini and GPT-4 from OpenAI, I think one advantage or promise I see from Google's model is their whole expertise on search. As we know, I think these models are like trained in time and up to a certain data, or up to a certain point in time, and they only have certain amount of data. So given it's Google and massive expertise in search, I probably am more hopeful that they will have more up-to-date information going inside the model to give the results, something they coin term as like search grounding. I think that is quite promising as from Gemini, if they can pull it off, to have all the updated data being fed into model to do its response generation.
Definitely. And even though with OpenAI as well, you could have tool usage doing browsing and things like that to get more updated information, Google has like internal first-hand access to the data and to the actual web searching, right? So it could be that they can build something a lot more powerful than any other developer can build with tool usage.
Although I don't think so they have kind of announced anything yet around this area, but this makes sense to me. Like this should come, if it should come from Google, definitely.
That said, so everything, all of what we said is very exciting, right? But there was also a bunch of controversy around all of these Google announcements. One of them being Google released a few videos showcasing the abilities of Gemini Ultra, right? And a lot of people are claiming that these videos were doctored or misleading, essentially. What do you think about that, Alex?
So I think they've been foolish. I think if they had announced what they announced and didn't do those videos, the academics would have been just as impressed. And they, I think, in a fairly foolhardy approach, have displayed something as if it's reality. And actually, it's a little bit of a marketing video. So I think marketing have got a bit carried away, because what people really want to see is reality. They want to know exactly what they can expect, especially if Google is trying to achieve its aims of encouraging more startups, more companies to use their Gemini toolkits. Then they've undermined a little bit of trust by, I mean, my understanding is what they've done is they put these videos together where you have a sort of, it's like a top-down video, and there's two hands and they're showing different things. And then you have on the right-hand side the AI's natural language through text interpretation of what it's seeing. And it's stunning. The way that it's done looks like it's in real time, super impressive. And actually looks like it would be quite fun to play with, especially if you can imagine doing it with your phone and like mucking around, and you can imagine doing a recipe or something, and there's lots of ways that you can get excited about what this demo is showing you, and the lack of latency. And it turned out that they had run through this process, and then I believe they just sort of squashed it together to make it a really beautiful marketing video. And it just had flashbacks to when Bard was released, and there were some errors in some of the responses, in that I believe it was actually in the announcement, like the press announcement demo of Bard. And you just thought they really would have learned from that that what people want to see is what they're actually going to get, and that they can trust the outcomes. So I think they've shot themselves in the foot there. It's been covered fairly well. It just made me a little bit sad, to be honest.
In a way, though, it's the opposite problem from the Bard demo video problem, right? They showed too much reality in that one, and maybe not enough reality in the new ones. Also, that said, they did have disclaimers on those videos clearly saying what the manipulation that they did was, right? It's not like they tried to hide the fact that these videos were not exactly reality.
It's true. Maybe they're getting too much flack for it. On this note, by the way, some are suggesting that what they were showing isn't too different to what GPT-4's image recognition is capable of anyway. So if GPT-5, which I believe is rumored to, will allow video inputs, then it looks like it will be able to do the same function there. There's a user on Twitter or on Reddit, sorry, I put the link in the show notes, that shows someone's uploading screenshots of the Gemini demo to GPT-4, and it's giving good responses, as you would expect, to be honest. So yeah, maybe people are being a bit harsh, because it's not like it was utterly groundbreaking. They just wrapped it in a way that was very satisfying to watch.
Yeah, to me they were like more like a commercial.
Yeah, and you can't blame them for promotional work.
So
yeah, go on.
there was a bit more controversy, though, not around videos, but in the scientific community around the actual results and comparisons with GPT-4. So Google released a technical white paper with no details about what Gemini is as a model, but with some tests that they've run on public benchmarks against other models, including GPT-4. They were claiming that for many of those tests, Gemini was quite a bit better than GPT-4, right? But then if you take a closer look at the conditions under which those tests were run, they were not testing the models out using equal methodology. So they were, for example, using a technique called chain of thought with 32 different samples, so generating 32 different outputs with chain of thought, and then trying to take a majority vote or some kind of consensus from those outputs. And in that context, they did better than GPT-4, and only in some configurations. But in the basic configurations that everyone else is using to perform these benchmarks, GPT-4 actually does better. And that happens for quite a few of the comparison categories. So they don't test out in an equal way, and then they present the results as if Gemini is clearly better than GPT-4 in those categories, when it was not like an equal comparison. So that's a bit more worrying to me. I wish they would have tested in an equal way, so that then we know what the actual performance difference is between GPT-4 and Gemini.
Do we know anybody who has done that? Because presumably, well, only Google can right now, right? Because nobody else has access to Gemini Ultra.
Yeah,
but
correct.
when that will be very interesting to see, won't it? When it is released, someone will definitely apply the same methodology.
I agree.
Another thing that came up, I watched the summary video from a guy who runs a channel called AI Explained on YouTube. I'll pop the link in the show notes. And he described the sort of the error rates to a lot of the metrics that they were using. Like Anthropic don't use some of these measures anymore. They don't report them to decimal points or certain significant figures because there's such a sort of level of error rate. And the way that Google reported them, knowing that it was a flawed thing to do, like to state it as like 89.6, when actually there's a give or take 3% there, is arguably statistically misleading. So that was another punt that I think the marketing team at Google probably took, hoping that the academics wouldn't mind too much.
The academics always mind, Alex.
That kind of shows like how Google was. Maybe it's fine to say desperate to kind of compare itself with GPT-4 and try to appear better than GPT-4. But if it is just about reaching closer to GPT-4, and if GPT-5, which is already in making, might come out soon next year, might be already better, then maybe is Google still behind OpenAI, I guess.
Have either of you given Bard a try since this release, which is running on Gemini Pro?
I have not, but you said you tried it quite a bit, Alex. Would be very curious to hear what you think.
Yeah, I was a big fan actually. I've started using Bard for my casual conversations more so than GPT-4. I find GPT-4 to be a bit more verbose and long sentences, and if I just want something short or structured, Google Bard is providing a really nice way to do that. In fact, when I ask for comparisons between, say, for example, growth marketing and traditional marketing, the roles involved in those teams, GPT-4 gives sort of long answers, but Bard gives a really nice structured answer that builds on the previous conversation, and it gave a table that was formatted in a really nice way. And I know that's silly, but I thought that was quite a nice way to do it. I know GPT-4, ChatGPT can do that, but it just felt like it had been placed in at the right time, and it involved the right content, and it was a helpful response. So I mean, that's one example. There are other examples. I would definitely, I'd implore you guys to try and use it. As I said, I think it fits somewhere between GPT 3.5 and GPT-4, but it's less verbose than GPT-4, so it works quite well for quick queries you might have if you just want a good response. It also just feels a little bit different, which is really interesting to me. I think it goes to show that they must be trained on different data sets. And I think Google's data sets will be more focused on quality. I think they probably have that competitive advantage actually, because they have the underlying elements of their search index, dwell time data, backlink information, lots of very interesting things that OpenAI might have had to create on the fly proxies for. So Google can probably figure out uniqueness and quality better at scale than OpenAI. That's my gut feeling, but I wonder if you guys agree with that.
Yeah, totally. I think that's the promise. I think, or that's the expectation from Google. But I think at the same time, given the company is so big and wide and multiple things happen, I wonder how much of operational efficiencies they might be having or might need to have in order to pull off the dream we all are dreaming about. But I think OpenAI is probably more structured and built with this in mind. I think time will tell how Google is able to move itself into this direction.
If you had to take a bet at 2 years from today, whether Gemini Ultra, Ultra Super, whatever the next one's going to be called, outperforms GPT-5 or GPT-6, what if you were betting men, what would you who would you put your money on?
I'll go with Google because they've got all the right ingredients, all the right resources. I think it's just about proper management, proper team, company organization, and prioritization. then I think they can do it because they have that sort of other advantage.
I'll go with OpenAI just because Google is slower and OpenAI has focus, and OpenAI has Microsoft as well now, essentially. So I think that the models they'll build will be better. And I assume that they will also go full multimodal with their next models. That said, I might bet on Google having a more useful user product like Bard, for example, because then they can integrate it with search, put it on their phones, and actually build a good overall experience. OpenAI is not really trying to do that, but I would bet on Bard versus ChatGPT, but maybe on GPT versus the Google models.
I think that's a good point. I think because Google is even still a product company, still providing user with a end user product, whereas OpenAI major business model was around still providing API to developers to build products. So it's more like a tooling layer or foundation model service business. Yeah.
So Alex, sounds like we'll need you to break the tie here. Who do you vote for?
Oh, such a hard choice. I'm annoyed that I asked the question now because I have to make the decision. This past year, I've done a U-turn on Google. I would have, when OpenAI was released, everyone was talking about the death of Google search. I think that's probably still coming in some sense, but Google are now really well equipped to handle it and to transform that usage data and what has been a multi-decade cash cow for them into a world-leading AI tool. They generate more free cash flow, I think, than Microsoft. So if it's a race for resources and money, I think Google win. I think if it's a race for data quality, I think Google win. So if OpenAI can keep pulling disruptive things out of the bag, keep surprising, it'll be hard for a big company like Google to keep up. But Google does have a structure that is supposed to allow for this kind of innovation. And they've clearly shown that they can move fast. If you think about how fast Google has moved in the past year and how big that company is, it's massive, massive achievement, that is. So I'm going to fully complete my U-turn, and I'm going to suggest actually Google might be the one. And I wasn't just sold on the demo. I think the data looks promising. They're asking all the right questions. They're measuring all the right things. As Nitish said perfectly, they have all the right ingredients. So it may be a matter of time. But if data is the most important thing, I think they probably have more internal data of higher quality. That is, I think OpenAI's competitive advantage is the number of users they've got of the AI tools and the usage data from that. They'll get the network effect of the thumbs up, thumbs down usage feedback. So if Google can get similar usage volumes, then I think they'll win. And that's probably why they were pushing the promotion of this so hard as well.
Yeah, in terms of data collection, I think, or feedback data, I think only data they say they can use for training is from ChatGPT. And it appears based on the report that ChatGPT usage has gone down as compared to at the start. So yeah, I think that could affect OpenAI in terms of what data they can use for feedback.
Agreed.
One more thing to mention here is that all of the ChatGPT and GPT 3.5 and 4 were huge breakthroughs, right? But all of this is based on Google research, essentially. So Google has been researching large language models for years, and a lot of the breakthroughs in the previous years were from Google research that published these resources openly. And that's what OpenAI used to build their tools. They're not publishing their breakthroughs, which is a bit cheeky, but it is based on Google research. Not only Google, of course. It is based on academic research, right? But historically, a lot of the publications around this area have been like Google has been really strong at this.
Another thing we haven't mentioned, I think that's a really good point, is Android and Chrome. OpenAI and Microsoft have nothing to compete with the usage or the ubiquity of those tools that reach every desktop and every mobile device. I mean, obviously not every, but I can't imagine Apple sharing their data with Microsoft and OpenAI anytime soon. So for the sake of the conversation, we can say every available mobile device, the data will probably be going to Google.
What are you talking about, Alex? There's Windows Mobile and Edge browser, so it's like one and one.
I know it's a throwback, but the beginning when ChatGPT was released, and Bing Chat was released, Microsoft was like, yes, everybody's going to use Bing, because you can only use Bing Chat if you download, whatever it was, Edge, and you start using Bing, and like there has been barely a significant movement in market share there, which is a shame. I think maybe there was a chance there, but I feel like that window has closed again for another few years.
That's a massive point because, as you said, Google owns a lot of distribution channels. Like Google Search itself, they're planning to put into generative search experience, Gemini now, and then by default, just everyone is used to search. So that's where they can gather a lot of feedback data. Mobile device, as you said, they own all of that. Also, I think they pay billions to Apple to place their search inside the browser. So they pretty much got everything covered, and now they're placing their models there, so they can get a lot of feedback data and learn more from it.
Yeah, on that note, it was reported last month that Google pay $18 billion to be the default search on Apple devices. So actually, yeah, you're absolutely right. They have those channels nailed.
One thing which is very interesting, I think you touched upon, was, and maybe we should dig more deeper into this future, like where innovation can happen here. Like Google's bread and butter right now is advertisement, and that all comes from Google search and all the clicks people click on sponsored ads and so on, or websites. But with the shift of using AI to ask anything, ask questions, and then based on that get results, kind of taking away some share from search. And in a way, no ads probably are then anymore displayed to anyone. So I wonder whether Google is going to do this, where they have more embedded ads and recommendations, paid ads and recommendations inside the model. Does that become a business model? The model itself does some form of ad revenues.
Yeah, very interesting points. We haven't touched on AlphaCode 2, so I think let's leave that for a later episode, and let's wrap it up here. Any closing remarks other than I love the fact that you two went for different long-term, actually it was medium-term bets, wasn't it? I did say 2 years ahead.
Alex, who do you think is Google and who do you think is OpenAI on my background? I have a background with a fight between two large language models. One is like a humanoid shape, and the other is like very abstract. Who do you think is Google and who do you think is OpenAI? Let me disappear for a moment from the camera.
So I'm going to go with Google has the structured data. So it's going to be the one that has the more of a formed face, and OpenAI is sort of like the black hole hoovering up the internet. So that's my
Nice.
choice.
I like your explanation.
Alex, your floor in that image looks like a Tron movie. I don't know if you have seen it.
Yeah, it does a bit, right? Yeah, I have not seen it, but I'm aware.
It's a very good soundtrack to work to, actually. It's all by Daft Punk. And I have as my background, I'll pop the link to this image on Reddit, but it's made using Midjourney, and it is Godzilla walking through a town in the style of the painting Starry Night. And I have to say, I love it and I want it on my wall.
Very nice. I liked it as well.
My could you guess what that I was trying to generate? It's very abstract, I think.
It looks like a medieval night, but kind of futuristic as well, with planets around it in the style of a medieval painting.
Yeah.
Not sure if that's what you were going for.
Yeah, I use Adobe Firefly and just ask very quickly to create an image for Gemini, since the topic was Gemini. This is what I got.
Interesting. There's, I think, because of the Gemini kind of astrological and like constellation connection, that's why it picked something like that. And mine as well. One of the, like in the middle between the two language models, there's some kind of constellation. I don't know enough to know if it actually looks like Gemini. I would expect probably not, but I think that the name just conditions the generation in both our pictures.
Well, as usual, thank you for listening. You can catch either the links to the images in some of the show notes, or you can just click to watch Using AI on YouTube. Please do subscribe, tell your friends, all of that usual stuff. And let us know what you would like us to cover. If you use Spotify for your podcast, we always pop a sort of Q&A and what you think of the episode on there. We do read all of those, and we would love to get your thoughts and your feedback. Thank you all for listening, and Alex and Nitish, thank you for joining me.
Thank you both. Bye, Alex. Bye, Nitish.
Thank you.